I think the pressure alone from playing the quarterback position at Texas comes with its own. And I mean, there's pressure with anything.
I never was a backup, so this year being a second string, a third string.
I don't think there is a single player in all of college football that is taking on a bigger risk than Quinn Ewers. And in the past, we've seen this risk pay off tremendously for many players entering the NFL. We've also seen it completely ruin any careers before they got off the ground. So before we get to the content, we are giving away copies of Madden NFL 25. All you have to do to enter is subscribe and turn on our notifications on this channel. And now that we get all that out of the way, work! NFL season's finally here, and PrizePicks is hooking us up fat with a brand new deal. New users that make a lineup of $5 get $50 guaranteed. All you have to do is go to the link in the description down below, download PrizePicks, create an account, and use my promo code microphone to get $50 guaranteed when you make a lineup of $5 or more. I give away my picks each and every day on my Instagram account @TheFlightMike, and thank you PrizePicks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? With a lot of drama surrounding the Texas Longhorns quarterback room this offseason, I think a lot of people are forgetting just how good, for the most part, Quinn Ewers was as the quarterback last season. After all, he did land himself on the cover of the long-awaited video game College Football 25 after throwing for just under 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, and finishing with a 69% completion percentage. Nice. So he must have been doing something right. Quinn Ewers' play made it so that many projections had the former Ohio State signee going as high as a top 5 pick in several different 2024 mock drafts. But after getting knocked out by the Washington Huskies 37-31 in last year's college football playoff, Ewers shocked the entire world, making the decision to come back for one more season and play in the SEC for the first time in Longhorns history. Now, on the surface, his decision doesn't seem that wild. I mean, he's not the first big-time player that has decided to come back for another season despite being projected as a top pick. But what really caught the eyes of a lot of people is the reason behind this decision. While most players are chomping at the bit to make millions of dollars in the NFL and get to the league that they've been dreaming of playing since they were, Ewers is actually taking a more cautious, patient, long-term approach. Because even though he could have been a top pick in last year's quarterback-heavy draft, it's more than well documented at this point, especially regarding quarterbacks, that just because you were drafted high, it doesn't mean that your career is necessarily going to pan out, which makes his reason all the more impressive. Sources told ESPN last year that if Quinn Ewers did end up deciding to return for his junior season, the main reason would be for another year of development, which would be best for his long-term success in the NFL. For a guy who, after only 2 seasons, already ranks 8th all-time in Texas history in passing yards and 7th all-time in passing touchdowns, this speaks volumes about his character and mindset. But even with this mature outlook of his, what really gives this entire situation more depth than appears is that even though he led the historic program to the Big 12 title and to their first appearance in the college football playoff, beating Alabama and Tuscaloosa along the way, his performance in the semifinal against Washington left a lot to be desired. There's actually a chance that this game is what convinced those close to him to advise him to stay for one more year. One win away from the final in the biggest game of his life, Ewers' play dipped big time. He only completed 56% of his passes, threw for only 1 touchdown, and was unable to score with 4 downs inside of the Washington 15-yard line in the final seconds. This left Texas fans absolutely devastated and had many questioning the signal caller's future at the school and beyond. And truth be told, while he has been more impressive than he hasn't, this is the first time that a former 5-star recruit has struggled at the collegiate level. Whether it was against Rice in last year's season opener or against Wyoming in week 3 of last season, Quinn Ewers has given some people reason to believe that he is not quite as good as his 2024 Heisman billing suggests. And it's not just a few people that believe his playing has been erratic either. There have been several coaches who have chosen to remain anonymous who have come out and said that they think Ewers is overhyped and has actually just been a product of a ridiculously talented group of skill position players surrounding him. Whether this is true or not remains to be seen, because though he has put some of these poor performances on film, as mentioned earlier, he has also put some absolutely monstrous stat lines together, such as last year's Big 12 record-breaking performance in the pro program's conference championship game against Oklahoma State, when he obliterated Sam Bradford's previous record of 384 passing yards by throwing for a whopping 452 yards, all while completing 35 of 46 pass attempts and throwing for 4 touchdowns. Yeah, the further we get into dissecting his play, the more we see that Ewers has a kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde action going on, sometimes showing one face and then other times showing a completely different one. If he can become more consistent, the sky's the limit for him. But if he can't, then it's likely that the Texas gunslinger will have to really hope that he gets drafted into the right situation in order to make a name for himself at the next level. But the real final wrench in this entire situation that makes this entire thing more intriguing for not only the Longhorn starter and the Longhorns program as a whole for that matter, is that a certain second-year quarterback with the last name of Manning is also on the roster. Arch Manning, the son of Peyton and Eli's brother Cooper, has been touted by the three brothers' father Archie as the best quarterback in the whole family. And sure, this is obviously just some family love being shown to instill some confidence in the budding quarterback, but after Arch stole the spotlight of the recent Texas spring game by throwing for 355 yards on 19 of 25 passing, along with 3 touchdowns and 2 75-yard bombs, his stellar play is making its rounds by way more than just the Manning family word. There have actually been reports clamoring so hard for the second-year quarterback to finally receive his first real opportunity that while some people have previously thrown around places that he could have decided to transfer to, some Texas insiders have even gone so far as to begin questioning whether or not the Longhorns should actually pull the trigger and start Arch Manning over preseason Heisman candidate Quinn Ewers himself, who in the same spring game that Manning dominated, managed to somehow throw a pretty bad pick six on his first attempt of the game. However, before we continue, can we take a moment to realize what a ridiculously incredible problem Texas has? While most programs can't even find a solid quarterback, Texas managed to be the only school with both of their top 2 as representatives at the Manning Passing Academy. It's completely feasible that they have 2 future NFL starters in the quarterback room, and the fact that there are even concerns about one beating the other out for playing time is proof that Texas is still one of the top programs in the entire country. With Quinn Ewers already facing doubters who bring up his off and on performances, he has already put himself in position to be playing with quite a bit of pressure on his shoulders this season. But now with one of the most highly touted quarterbacks of the future on his heels, he seems to be remaining confident, insisting recently in an interview with ESPN that the pressure of Manning being behind him is not something that gets to him any more than just simply being the starting quarterback at Texas to begin with.
I mean, there's pressure with anything, and I think the pressure alone from playing the quarterback position at Texas comes with its own. And you know, me and Arch have a great relationship, and we're really good buddies. And you know, it says in the Bible that iron sharpens iron. So it's just been awesome to have, you know, such a close relationship with all those guys, and especially Arch.
With all of this said, and with all of these different aspects of the upcoming season blooming around Ewers, it's a good thing for him that the one person that needs to believe in him the most besides himself has given him his full support. Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian, who, by the way, was awarded a new 7-year contract after last year's success that will pay him over $10 million annually, felt it necessary not too long ago to reiterate to Keyshawn Johnson live for all to see that his guy, Quinn Ewers, is the unquestioned starter, and that Ewers doesn't need to worry about looking over his shoulder to Manning, and he can just go out and chuck the rock around without the added anxiety of potentially losing his job.
But I'm a little bit of the belief of there's a developmental side, so that when you do play, you play great football, longevity in your career when you do get to the NFL.
I would never leave Texas in Austin.
Continuing to mature, staying healthy, things of that nature. And I think for Arch, what a great opportunity as a backup now this year, going to get some definite playing time, and we're looking forward to him doing that. The best for them, for their futures, so that they can play the best.
But even though this sounds good, what else can you really expect from the head coach regarding a player that got them one red zone touchdown away from a chance to play for the national championship? I mean, just imagine for a moment if Sarkisian did bench Ewers and then Manning came in and lost a game early in the season. Really, it would be one thing to make that mistake in general, but to do so at a place like Texas, he would absolutely get crucified. From this point of view, it's not only likely better for the team to operate under an experienced quarterback with over 20 plus starts to his name, but it's also a wise decision for the coach to make regarding his own future. Sarkisian will undoubtedly face less scrutiny if Ewers drops a game than if Manning did, though in all honesty, it's not out of the question that Texas could drop a few, seeing as 3 of their first 8 weeks alone involved games against Michigan in week 2, Oklahoma in week 7 and Georgia in week 8. But simultaneously, if they do hit a rough patch, then we can just see how firm Sarkisian stands in his preseason decision to go with Ewers. After all, just because he is saying all the right things now, that doesn't mean that if the team isn't getting what they need from Ewers that he won't switch up and go with Manning. Seriously though, the Longhorns coach was once the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban, who famously benched Jalen Hurts for Tua Tagovailoa in the 2018 National Championship game. Being that Saban has been named as one of Sarkisian's main football mentors, none of us should be surprised if we end up seeing Sarkisian bench a high quality player such as Quinn Ewers. And deep down, I secretly think that this possibility has some training wheels to it, seeing as how the Longhorns coach has even come out and said that the team will need both quarterbacks at some point or another this season. As we can see here, when you're the coach of a legendary program like Texas, not only do you have to always prepare yourself and your players for anything, but you have to drop little gumdrops around the way to prepare your fan base for anything that could happen as well. With such a good problem for Texas to have, I'm of the belief that only time will tell, and I'm guessing that when we look up in 4 or 5 years, both of these guys will be starting in the NFL.